We have all been given 5 free transfers for AFCON, even though hardly any of us own any AFCON players. So I'm not sure how I feel about it, but let's take a look at how you should be spending your 5 free transfers in FPL. Make sure you like and subscribe, and let's get right into it. First up, it is the fixture difficulty rating, and there is one team head and shoulders above the rest going into the next 6 game weeks, and that is Brentford. And luckily, Brentford have a few good players to own, so it's fairly easy to pick their players. They have a good defence, so it's worth picking a defender. Obviously, Thiago is on good form and one of the top scorers in the Premier League, so he's also good to go for. Then you could go for a triple up, maybe in a midfielder or an extra defender. It's not super strict, but they're a good team to target going in to these 5 free transfers in game week 16. There's also some other good teams with good fixture runs. Fulham have a really good short-term fixture run. After 3 game weeks, you may not want to own them anymore. Newcastle, while it's not as good as Brentford, do have a few good games coming up, some clean sheet potential and some goal scoring potential from their attackers. There's just a lot of rotation in that team, so be careful. And I mean, as if it couldn't get any worse for Wolves, they're very, very low in the Premier League and much lower than anyone else, and their fixture run is not looking good either. So guys, pray for Wolves in the comments, because it doesn't look like they're going to be getting more than 10 points this season, which is fairly embarrassing. If we look towards the top again, Arsenal, their fixture run is odd. Great entry point home to Wolves, then 5 grey fixtures in a row. Not too hard, not too easy. What I like about this fixture run is that their defence is so incredibly capable of keeping clean sheets in these fixtures that aren't super easy. So owning the Arsenal defence, 2 of them or 3 of them, is super important going into these 5 free transfers ahead of game week 16. You probably want to own at least 2 Arsenal defenders, whether that's Timber, Raya, Hincapie or Calafiori. Just make sure you pick the ones that have less chance of getting rotated. What this graph shows us is that you want to sell your players from Everton, Brighton and Villa, maybe even Bournemouth and Chelsea, to get players from the likes of Brentford, Fulham, Newcastle and Manchester United to target them good fixture runs. I mean, while you have the free transfers, why not do it? You don't need to play safe. Obviously, Bournemouth and Chelsea don't have the worst fixture runs, but Bournemouth are on awful form and Chelsea have a lot of rotation in their team, so they're 2 teams you don't really need to target players from, although it could be worth holding Semenyo for when he plays home to Burnley. That would be a pretty good idea. Also, I see Burnley have a fairly decent fixture run. Guys, if I see any of you bringing in players from Burnley, I will come to your house and delete your FPL team for you, okay? Don't be getting any silly ideas. Now we're looking at players you should be targeting with your 5 free transfers, starting with the defenders. Now, Big at the back is in full flow right now, guys. There's a lot of good defenders to own. I've put Munoz at the bottom here, but I don't really know what's going on with Munoz. There's a very good chance he doesn't even play in game week 16, but he's a set and forget hold player for the rest of the season. If he is ready to play, I don't care if he's playing Man City. Almost everyone in this game owns him, and you want to own him too. The underlying data going forward is nothing short of ridiculous for a defender that only costs 6 million. I can imagine he will cost a lot more going into next season, but for now, we've got him while he's cheap. So definitely bring in Munoz. Just, you know, maybe don't be so eager to bring him in this game week, maybe the game week after. Then we had Dan Burn. We talked about the Newcastle fixture run. It's pretty good, and the Newcastle defense is, it's all right. The clean sheet wipeout for Newcastle last game week was pretty heartbreaking. Burnley got a penalty in stoppage time. Not much you can do about it. Well, there is, just don't foul a player in the box. But yeah, people who own a lot of Newcastle defenders weren't happy with that one. Me, who owned Dan Burn, was fairly happy because he got subbed off early. And the game before that, when Newcastle didn't keep a clean sheet, he got defcons and an assist. That's why I think Dan Burn is the best Newcastle defender to go for. We then have Anderson, really good short-term fixture run. And when he does play tough games, you can either bench him or keep him in case of defcons. His defcon numbers are really good. He's not got much chance for a goal involvement, but then again, from corners, any centre-back does. I really like Anderson as a player because really good clean sheet potential across these next 3 game weeks, potentially 2 or 3 clean sheets, maybe in a row. I'm not too sure. I'm not going to jinx anything, but the Burnley and Forest game looks really enticing for Anderson. Just keep in mind, it's more of a short-term pick, but you know, you can hold him long-term if you've got someone to rotate him with on the bench through his tough games. The top 2 defenders are where you really want to look. A lot of you probably already own Timber. That's fine. Look towards a player like Hincapie from Arsenal instead. You know, like I said, the Wolves entry point home to Wolves is amazing, and the Arsenal defense is almost definitely going to keep a clean sheet. I really don't want to jinx them, but it is going to happen. I believe Arsenal are going to end this season with nearly 20 clean sheets. Gabriel or no Gabriel, okay? It's going to happen. Their defense is way too strong. The reason I suggest Timber and Hincapie is because they are the 2 least likely to get rotated, so they're the Arsenal defenders you want to target. I could recommend David Raya, but for a goalkeeper at 6 million, he is way too overpriced in my opinion. And finally, we finish it off with Brentford defender Collins. Good defcons, incredibly good fixture on medium to long term. Goal threat doesn't really exist too much in this guy's life, but it doesn't matter. He's a 5 million defender for a good defense on a really good fixture run with good defcons, a player you simply cannot miss out on. If you already own a Brentford defender, then maybe fair enough, you could give this guy a miss, but even a double up on the Brentford defense is not a bad idea. Looking to midfielders now, it's weird, guys. A lot of the teams with good fixture runs have a lot of rotation going on. It's not ideal. You know, it's not great. There's not a lot of midfielders I would recommend buying into this game week because they either have bad entry points or the rotation just isn't ideal for them at the moment. Like, for example, Harry Wilson is a great player for Fulham, very good value, short-term option, perfect. But is there a chance he gets benched? Yes. I don't think he will across the next 3 game weeks, by the way. I'm fairly confident he will start all 3 games, which makes him a good option to buy while he is quite cheap. You wouldn't buy him if you have lots of money to spare because you can spend it on someone who's actually worth the money. Wilson at 5.2 mil or 5.3, whatever he is, he's great, but you know, he's not going to get you big numbers. He's got the best underlying data for any Fulham midfielder with actual reliable minutes. I'm not a fan of Bruno from Newcastle, Bruno Guimaraes, I think that's how you say his name. He's doing very well recently, guys. It's rare that he blanks because he has decent goal involvement potential and defcon potential. His underlying data isn't great though. The thing is, Barnes, Gordon, Jacob Murphy, Elanga, etc., none of them have reliable minutes. So all these good midfielders Newcastle do have, you don't know who's going to start and who's going to get benched. And that is why Guimaraes is the best one to go for. Like, he can score, he can get assists, he can get defcons. Even though he's not going to get as many as Gordon would if he started or Barnes would if he started every game, he is the most reliable Newcastle midfielder to go for. And while he's on good form, why not pick him up? I personally wouldn't be super tempted to go there. But in terms of the options we have this game week and who's reliable for minutes, Guimaraes is reliable and very good value for how much he costs. These top 3 midfielders are where it gets interesting. I like these 3 a lot more. Bruno is obviously set and forget, hold for the rest of the season. The United fixture run, he's good. He's on all the corners and all the free kicks now, and Mbumo's gone. And he's already been getting so many assists from corners while Mbumo's been playing. He's also on penalties. Guys, Bruno is basically a better version of Guimaraes, and he costs 2 million more for a reason. You know, his defcons aren't as prevalent, but the expected goal involvements are usually better, and it's no surprise that Bruno is a better passer of the ball and a better shooter of the ball than Guimaraes, so he's more likely to overperform the underlying data, even though that's not the case at the moment. The main reason I like Bruno is because he may play in a more advanced role. Instead of playing as a centre mid, he may play as an inside forward, which is what I really like for Bruno going ahead into these next few game weeks, but even if he doesn't, he's still a really good asset. Next up, we have Declan Rice. Now, Declan Rice is a very good player, guys. He's on a lot of set pieces for Arsenal, who score a lot of set piece goals, much like Bruno, and Declan Rice's defcons are also amazing. A player you definitely want to target. There are differential options out there, like, you know, Trossard is someone I'm considering, but I wouldn't put him in this top 5 because he's unreliable for minutes. But short term, Trossard could be a really good pick for the next few games because if you guys look at his returns in the Premier League, it's rare that he blanks, even when he comes on as a sub. So I would recommend you guys to target Trossard or Declan Rice. Just beware, Trossard is an incredibly risky player to go for, and you would need some bench cover for when you think he's going to get rotated. Declan Rice is the main player I like because corners, free kicks, you know, Arsenal get a lot of those and they score from a lot of those. And then you have defcons. Like recently, Declan Rice has been finding it incredibly hard to blank because he has so many avenues to go down to get points. And finally, it will come to no one's surprise that Phil Foden is the highest priority in the game. I've owned him for the last few game weeks. I feel incredibly lucky. Even though the entry point for Foden isn't great, his ownership is going to be incredibly high and his form is way too good. Despite the bad entry point and despite the fact he may be a rotation risk, he's someone you simply cannot go without in FPL, and it's becoming more of a fact every single game he plays. Now onto the forwards, guys. When I recommend you players to buy, I really try and get 5 players from each position, but in this game week, I simply could not, okay? There are not 5 forwards I could recommend you buy. If I had to fill out this graph with 2 other forwards, I would have had to have recommended Fleming from Burnley. And guys, trust me, I do not want to recommend Fleming from Burnley to you all for your FPL teams, so I'm not putting any more players here than there needs to be. Obviously, Haaland is one forward you are going to own, and these 3 are the players you want to pair around him. You know, which 2 you pick, I don't mind. Bodderz, in my opinion, is the worst to own out of these 3, but medium to long term, he is a good pick, and his underlying data isn't awful. He doesn't seem to be on the best form at the moment, and he didn't score or assist home to Burnley, which surprised me. But, you know, Bodderz is still a valid forward to own, despite the fact Wissa may be playing ahead of him now and then. I don't think Wissa's going to be starting anytime soon, but the fact Wissa is there is a little scary. Now we have the 2 forwards I really think you should own. Raul Jimenez has a great short-term fixture run. His underlying data isn't too bad for a guy that plays for Fulham. We mustn't forget he is on penalties. He has goal threat as well as assist potential. So even though Fulham aren't great at the moment, these next 3 games are really good for Raul Jimenez. Really the only Fulham player I would be eager to buy into my team myself. And obviously, we've talked about Brentford already. Thiago is the highest priority forward in the game alongside Haaland. Even though his non-penalty expected goals aren't great, he's still an amazing striker playing for a good team that have an amazing fixture run. So he's simply a player you cannot miss out on. His ownership is going to be so high, it's a no-brainer. If you don't own Thiago, it is going to hurt your FPL rank in ways you cannot fathom. So make sure you guys bring him in your team because he's not even that expensive. You know, it shouldn't be that hard. Now, in my opinion, there are only 2 players you can consider for captaincy this game week. One of them is obviously Erling Haaland. His expected goal numbers are still very high. His big chances and shots in the box are still incredibly high, but his form has not been good. He has not been finishing them big chances at all like he normally does. He's not been playing too well. Foden has been taking the spotlight massively. Creatively, Haaland's not been too bad though. He's created 2 big chances and his teammates have finished them for him. So fair play to Haaland, he's done well there. Where he's not been scoring as much, he has been creating some chances for his teammates. In terms of the actual output, you can see here his goals, he's massively underperforming, but the assists, he's massively overperforming, which isn't really what I like. You know, I want a player who can actually score his expected goals, and normally Haaland is that player who can score his expected goals. So how long this bad form continues for, I'm not 100% sure. The reason I think Haaland is still a very good captaincy option despite the bad form and the fairly tough fixture is that Crystal Palace can still concede goals and Haaland is still one of the best strikers in the world. Form is only temporary, whereas class is permanent. I'm sure you've heard that saying before. It's very risky to go without Haaland because his effective ownership is going to be incredibly high. A lot of people will still captain Haaland, myself included, because there's no real, logic in going against him when he could easily bag a hat-trick against any team in the league. With that being said, if there were ever a time to go against Haaland, it would be this game week. And that man is Bukayo Saka playing against arguably the worst team in the league, a Bukayo Saka who is on pretty good form. Good goal threat, good assist potential, and the output is pretty good as well. Bukayo Saka has been good since he's come back. He's not started every single game, which is a bit of a risk. I think owning Saka may be a mistake. He's costing 10.2 million. And while more than half the people that still play FPL own him, I think he may be a little overpriced. Regardless of that, he is the only other viable captaincy option this week aside from Haaland. No one at all would be surprised if Saka came away with a double-digit haul this game week and Haaland blanked. That's a fact. Haaland's playing a tough game, he's not on good form. Saka's playing an easy game and he is on good form. So while I'm not a fan of going against Haaland, Saka looks very enticing as a captaincy option. And if I did own Saka and if I was planning on transferring him in, it would play on my mind as to who I should captain. I just don't think, me personally, I'm not going to own Saka, even though it could be a big risk and a mistake. I just don't believe in him because he's too expensive. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about him as a captaincy option, and I think he's incredibly good. Wolves don't really have any underlying weaknesses, whether it's their left flank or their right flank. They concede even chances across the board, so there's no positional advantage for any specific Arsenal player. But Saka is obviously their talisman in a sense. I don't know if Recoveries is going to be back or not. It's hard to say with Arteta's rotation antics. But Bukayo Saka will be on penalties, most likely. I don't think Recoveries is going to be on penalties. Despite the fact Saka has only taken half of them, he is still their penalty taker because he took one when Recoveries was on the pitch. He also takes some corners, but no free kicks. So Bukayo Saka has a fair few avenues to go down to get some points. And we all know he's not scared of getting defcons now and then, which could happen because in a game like home to Wolves, there is a good chance he will pick up loads of recoveries which amount to his defcons. Anyway, that's it from me, guys. It's been a bit of a different video this game week. I've sort of just made a Bodderz guide. That's what I'm going to call it. I want you all to let me know what you think down in the comments if you did make it this far. What you think of this type of video. Should I make this type of video more often? And what more aspects to it should I add? Recommended transfers, plays to sell. Please let me know down in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.